Kara Shalom, welcome to our watercolor journey. Today you will learn how to use a very limited palette to paint this landscape. The materials used are listed in the description below. On the palette, we have burnt sienna and French ultramarine. The Canson paper is taped to a flat board with regular masking tape. Heinrich uses a Herend No. 7 flat brush to wet the entire paper. In the palette, he has a premix of French ultramarine and burnt sienna. The darker one has more French ultramarine and the lighter one has more burnt sienna. He starts with a darker greyish mix, then he adds some pure French ultramarine and works the colors into the sky very lightly. The brush lost a hair in the process. Do not attempt to remove it if you encounter such a situation. You will make unwanted marks on your paper. Once the paper is dried, you can simply brush it off. To create distance in the sky, place the darker pigment at the top and lighter pigment at the bottom. He uses the Vinci Harbin Kolinsky No. 6 round brush to start with the background trees. He starts with a grey mix and adds pure burnt sienna or pure French ultramarine for variation. He works wet in wet, so the paint spreads nicely and creates soft feathery edges. Have a look at our review about the Harbin Kolinsky brushes. The link is in the description below. They are really amazing. He draws grey and brown lines toward the middle of the landscape to create the illusion of a path and to establish some perspective. These lines lead your view into the painting. He adds a bit of the warmer burnt sienna to the foreground for the grasses. The paper has dried a bit and now he works damp into damp. The pigment has also dried a bit more in the palette, so it is a bit stronger. The paint does not spread as much as before, but it still creates soft edges because of the dampness. The spread is a little bit more controlled though. Heinrich likes to splatter some paint wet into wet. This helps the splatters to diffuse softly into the existing layer and it creates interesting variations. He uses the corner of a store card to scratch in some trees in the background. Notice that where the paper is wetter, the etchings make dark lines because the paint pools in the furrows that were created by the card. Where the paper is drier, the card pushes the pigment away and it brings out the white of the paper. Take care when you do this. These marks cannot be concealed with another layer of paint. When you made the mark, it sits. The diagonal etchings create variation in the terrain and also draw the viewer into the painting. The immediate foreground is left bare so as not to block the view. He uses the Chinese no-name calligraphy brush to ground the trees and to give some definition to the horizon line. He draws the lines in a curve to represent a hillside. He paints some trees over the existing etchings. The etchings are lighter, so they seem further back. He paints some of the trees in darker browns and others with lighter values to create distance. He adds a few prominent grasses in the foreground to give texture, and then he paints the main tree. This tree balances the composition. It forms a counterweight for the darker trees in the background on the left. This tree is more defined and the paint is darker. There's also a bit more detail in this one because it is the focal point and it is in the immediate foreground. The contrast between the dark tree against the light sky also enhances the idea of distance. Use a variety of values in this tree to create dimension and texture in the tree. He draws a light line under the tree to ground it. Then he adds a few lines and some splatters to make the terrain more interesting. The splatters are now made on dry paper, so they are more distinct, looking like little rocks in the path. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and let us know in the comments if you found these tips and techniques helpful. You are welcome to share your paintings with us on Instagram. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you soon. Vaya con Dios.